But I'm sure you guys know better about the excuses than
Well,
me because you
that's
have the experience.
yeah. Well, that seems very generous of you. So just to recap quickly, we've got Vitor and Maria Costa of Portugal Door here, starting out helping people buy a home in northern Portugal, and Maria helping people to learn Portuguese. And we began talking about the barriers to that. And we can, I mean, it'd be great to hear from all parts of the conversation tonight on what's difficult about it from the expat point of view and how you can help Maria with the solution side. But you very generously said there the excuses you hear are the ones you make yourself in your daily life, starting with not
Yes.
having the time to do that. So I guess that's sort of lesson number one. We do have to make a priority of it, don't we? And set some time aside. How have you dealt with that specifically? And what's your method? Do you do an online class and session each week? How does it work with people when you're teaching them?
So I mainly focus on conversational Portuguese,
Right.
and I like to adapt to people's needs. So, for example, if people want just to talk for 1 hour and have some feedback and maybe some motivation, like, okay, this is not how you do it, you can say it this way. Um, we can have that. Some people really like to know the details and the grammar. Then I adapt and I do that more instead of just talking. Some people like to write, some like to listen.
Mm-hmm.
I have one-to-ones, but I also have groups, especially lately friends that just want to have a tea and a coffee and speak Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a great way to learn. Um, yes, so I adapt to what people need.
Great. Okay. So kind of bespoke or user led, if you like, in terms of keeping people engaged, presumably, because they're learning what they want and need to learn rather than being over-faced and undermined by a massive grammatical rule book or conjugating verbs
Yes,
that they might never.
usually people actually run away from that. That's the
I,
first thing
yes.
people say. Look, I just want to know how to talk. I don't want grammar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eventually, after 1 or 2 sessions, the word verb or adjective
Yeah.
appears out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So we cannot really run away,
Yeah.
but we can adapt and do it in a more natural way. Also
Yes.
because when learning a language, and I think Victor keeps saying that, so I'm probably repeating what he said, but when you learn a language, you need to learn the culture.
Yes.
It's
That's
not like you can just literally translate everything.
yeah.
You actually need to know, okay, you can say that, it will sound a little bit weird. So this is the most natural way to say it. And that's also a very important part of knowing how to say, for example, in the north of Portugal,
Yes.
we speak a little bit different.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes.
Bit more swearing, I've heard, but you don't mean that, do you?
I never swear, so I will never teach that part.
If she
That's
swears, I call my mom and ask to spend over the night there.
okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. That will be a great reassurance for some people. Okay, so that's wonderful. So your classes are conversational, what people would like to learn, what's going to be useful to them, because that's really, they can apply it. That's really helpful
Yes,
and
and
very
that's
useful.
also the fun part. It's like,
Yeah.
for example, I teach an expression that comes up naturally
Yes.
in the conversation. Oh, we actually say this. For
Yeah.
example, we have an expression, nunca pior,
Mm-hmm.
never worse. And it's not, so, I think it's a very Portuguese thing. And I noticed that we are very depressing people, I guess.
Yeah.
So all the expressions we have is like we are content with life. Doesn't matter if everything is okay or if the world is falling apart. We always have an expression to say we are okay, everything is okay, life goes on. So yeah, it's I have lots of fun.
Which is what Vitor's saying about the culture, right? You're getting an insight into the national psychology when you hear the two. I guess there's a spectrum. If you're having a really good day, you would respond maybe mais ou menos, more or less, it's okay. And that's a good day, isn't it? And then on a bad day, it's what? Nunca pior, what did you say?
Nunca
Yeah.
pior.
Pior. Nunca pior.
Nunca
Okay.
pior.
Okay,
Yeah.
good to know. All right. Brilliant. Any other questions then, Portugal Club members, masterminders? What would you like? I mean, Steve probably wants to know all about real estate lingo, which would be quite useful. That would be your good application, wouldn't it, Steve? Use case.
Yeah, I think something I've been trying to do is learn better Portuguese and try and understand of the people that I'm dealing with. So I think over time, the conversational Portuguese will be beneficial because I'm always trying to work with locals and not just foreigners as well. But I need to work with local people to get a better understanding of what kind of market am I getting involved in.
Yeah. Okay, and that's a way that you might work. For example, with Steve there, Maria, you could do property and real estate and redevelopment based conversation with Steve, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's yeah.
All right.
For
That's a good idea.
example, casa germinada. Do you know what that means?
No.
So
A house.
if you translate it, it would be something like a sprouted house.
Yeah.
Because germinar is a botanical term that means to sprout, right? Like when you plant a seed and it starts sprouting and all of that. But in reality, what people meant is casa geminada, which comes from Gemini, which means twin. So a lot of people, including real estate agents, will type casa germinada, where if you do a translation, it will sound very, very weird.
Yes.
So you don't only have to understand the culture and the language, but you also do well in knowing the common errors that Portuguese people make that can make things very confusing.
Yes. Yeah. And they do, don't they? This is what we realize
all the time.
Yeah.
There's a there's a page on Facebook called O Agente Funini, the Funini agent, that constantly posts about less desirable things that are seen on the real estate area, and you see a lot of stuff like that.
Right. Excellent. I want to ask you about timescale as well. One of the things I'm picking up asking people about, what's gone wrong with learning Portuguese is there seems to be no end to it. People embark on the A2 or hear about the A2 course, which is 2 nights a week for 9 months, which seems like a really big commitment. And is, of course, and that seems like a too big a commitment for some people who just want to learn how to speak and have a conversation and grow their confidence. How do you timescale that, Maria? Do you say like by a certain time, you're going to be able to do X, Y, or Z? Because I think that psychologically would help people to get them to a milestone of their Portuguese communication, rather than it's like it goes on and on and on and on. Does that sound fair to you, that people do get overwhelmed by it never ending?
Yeah, I think it depends on each person's goals, because there are people that really want to practice every day, and at this point, for example, I have a student that I just go there and she just tells me, I want to talk to you. Yeah. And she speaks Portuguese and I correct here and there, but she's already advanced, so she just wants to have someone to speak Portuguese with.
Yeah.
For example. Okay. So that one, I hope it never ends, because I'm just having a good conversation and learning with her, so that's nice.
Yes.
But yes, that is a problem, I guess, with those courses. They do have a purpose, because you have usually a certificate at the end, and that's useful.
Yeah.
But if you really want to learn a language, what I think is that if you have a teacher, it's a resource, but you really have to use the teacher.
Yes.
And let the teacher know what do you want, what are your expectations, and you yourself need to have that goal for you. Yes. Okay, I want to learn this by this time.
Yeah.
Because everyone is always available to help you, but you also need to know what you really want by when.
Yeah.
Because we are always here to help, right?
Yes, definitely.
So yes, what I usually do is I create the courses for each team or person.
Yeah.
And we have the goals, and I follow the course, so they know that in 4 sessions they will know this. They know that in 8 sessions they will know that. So, and then we always change and evolve as they want, of course.
Very good. Okay, João do Norte, John and Christina, would you care to? I mean, just for the sake of understanding what people's needs are, do you have a what by when, or some sense of breaking the language, or not the language, but your requirements of the language down into what you'd like to know and by, and how quickly? Can I start with you, John Heimbach?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know so much about that. I was just thinking of the number of different courses that I've had presented to me here, some paid, some free. I'm starting one this next Saturday, but it's one of those things where we have obligations that come up where, I have a brother coming into town that I'll spend some time with. We have to go back to the States in July. So, these things that last for 9 months, it really makes it hard to fit into your other obligations and things. I was thinking back at university days, you had courses that you signed up for that were, you signed up for a course that would end in a quarter or in 3 months. Or if you were on a semester system, it would end in, in 4 months or 4 or 5 months. But nothing would last for 9 months. So that would be unusual even for university coursework. I don't know if it's that way in Portugal, but Maria and Vitor, when you were in university and you signed up for a course, how long would it typically take?
Way too long, longer than it had to be.
But
Yeah, good answer.
We have 2 semesters, so 6 months.
Yeah.
Or 4 or 5 each.
Yeah.
Like, to give an idea, like 2 years of Russian,
Oh, bloody long.
we just kind of know the basics.
Yeah.
Like, not read and write, but that's about it.
Wow. Okay, and John, what would be your preferred outcome? Where do you want to get to? Because what I see happening is in being overwhelmed by a really big target and the scheduling problem you're talking of 9 months, people end up doing nothing at all, and the weeks and years roll by, and nothing happens, which is a real shame, because we are living in the culture where you could learn to speak and engage given the right tools and opportunities. But it's as though if I'm not going to do A2, I'm not going to do anything at all. And then people who do the A2s sometimes do nothing at all after that. They don't even speak Portuguese after they've done an A2 course, which is really strange. But so what would be your preferred outcome? What level would you want to get to? Say again, John.
I might have to talk with Maria and do something with her, because with more of an approach perhaps towards conversational, I think that would be my goal is situational Portuguese.
Yes.
Conversation in the restaurant, the supermarket, when traveling, the train station, or having a holiday. What are the situations that you find yourself in?
Yeah. Okay. So conversational situations, got that. Thank you very much. The brands. Interestingly, a household made of marketing brain and education brain. So I think you both would have some input, I think, useful input on this as well. And of course, your own experience of trying to learn Portuguese over here, which didn't seem to go terribly well, if I'm not giving too much of a confidence away.
Right. But yeah, I think so, both with academic backgrounds, learning objectives. What is your learning objective? So I'll speak for me. John has a different learning objective. I'm still working. And so to me, time really is a challenge because I'm still working and trying to do a bunch of other things. But I'd say for me, like in 3 months, being more comfortable, having some basic conversational skills, because I did take A1. So I have an understanding, but I haven't utilized it too much, and it's not geared towards conversation.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm trying to start conversations when we go out to eat, when we meet people, because we like going to like pubs or social places where we can have a conversation and say a little bit about ourselves, ask people questions about themselves and what they like,
Yeah.
what they don't like to do. So basic conversation. And again, so not just going out, but you know, if you're going someplace you stuck, you need to ask for help, or if you're, you know, shopping or something like that.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. That's really useful. So
Yeah.
a kind of 3-month time frame, basic conversation, and being more comfortable, possibly / confident in having those conversations.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Great. Thank you. What about you, John Brand?
We both started at the same time when we got here. And I had a problem with the tutor because she was teaching us Portuguese, obviously, but she was from Angola and she hated Portugal.
It's not a good start, is it? Not a good start.
No.
It was a
Remember
challenging.
the part about culture, though.
Yeah.
I had to stop. There were 9 of us started, and there were only Christina and one other left.
One other person left at the end of the course.
All she did was they made me come here. It was just horrible. It was like
She was
talking
very
to,
negative. Yeah.
a prison guard at Auschwitz after in German. It was just horrible. So, but I've signed up and it's basic. It's online, and I'm actually going to start again when we get back from. We're going to the
USA,
States in
yeah.
next month. So,
No, in 2 weeks.
2 weeks
It's now April.
this month. Oh.
Yeah.
So you have signed up for an online course, did you say, John?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I ask what's the learning objective? What's the time frame? What are you looking at with that?
Just that I become not trapped as a foreigner.
Yeah.
I need to communicate properly.
So this one's on demand and self-paced.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
And it's
right.
beginner.
Yeah.
And as I think I've discussed with you to a little bit, I write poetry in English. I want to start learning. I want to write poetry in Portuguese as well.
Oh, very good.
For that project I've got, which includes doing both. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping by this time next year, and this might be overly expectant, but I want to be fairly much fluent over the next year.
Yeah.
Right.
In conversation.
Yeah. I don't want to be able to discuss knitting patterns. I don't need that.
Yeah.
But just speaking to people about ordinary things in an acceptable non-pidgin Portuguese. So,
And you've got a head start on Angolan Portuguese relationships as well from a cultural
Yeah.
point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
People still having problems integrating after decades. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really helpful. Thank you. No, I don't know if you've got anything to add. I'm sure you speak to a lot of foreigners who say how hard it is or all their excuses for not doing it.
What I have to add now is just this. Give me just a quick moment. Are you listening?
Yes.
It's painful. It's Benfica Stadium. Noise, only noise. And
Is that what we can hear?
I live with this.
The nightmare of the sound
Yes.
of Benfica. I'm so
Yes.
sorry, Nunu.
I hope that instead of a nightmare, I experience a dream today.
Are you moving closer to Sporting then?
Am I moving too?
Closer to Sporting, to Avalad?
No.
Right, okay. Right.
My heart is there. I don't need to leave the state.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a football fan group. If there was a conversational group built around football with the right sort of tutor, that would be very engaging. And it's the same thing you were talking about before, I think, Maria, is when people talk about something they're interested in, it just makes a world of difference, doesn't it? To just abstract, the driest sort of teaching is just painful for people, especially if you're not a kid anymore. If you don't have to do it and sit in front of a teacher and have, you know, old school didactic teaching, because you have to be there, otherwise you're a truant. You know, if you don't have to do it, you probably won't, will you? To be fair.
Yeah, but you mentioned something that is key to me. That is, you asked, you said, especially if you are not a kid anymore.
Yes.
The key is being a kid.
Yes. On the other hand, yes. Okay,
Yeah.
having a child mind and openness to it.
Feed the child, the inner
Yes.
child.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And the child, as in the being who's happy to make mistakes and learn and see mistakes as being part of the learning process, rather than an adult who beats himself up every time they get the wrong pronunciation or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and that happens for sure, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. So, and that comes back to the learning psychology, I think. So thanks, guys, for that. Vitor and Maria, I don't know if you want to add any more to your style and approach and respond to what you've heard.
There is one thing I want to add, and then you can go. It's quick. But when you mentioned, a lot of people that came here into the country and are having trouble with the language, I actually had a meeting with a Mandarin coach one time, and she said that, Chinese is probably a more drastic example because the culture and the language is so much different, right?
Yeah.
But trying to learn a language by just going into the country, it's like learning how to swim by jumping into the ocean, right? And often people are in such a panic that they feel that they're drowning. There's so much going on at once that it can be difficult to stay calm and concentrate so that you can start learning how to actually do it.
Very interesting, because I've had it that the people who learn are the ones who do get on a kitchen or a building site, and they just have to. But I guess that's traumatic as well, isn't it? As you're suggesting there.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Yes.
In the end, it depends of each of us, and I always use this example, which is James Hawley or Banana Slug.
Yes.
And he do an amazing job learning Portuguese, and he is very worried with all the details and the tone. Sometimes I realize that Portuguese words have different tones just because he's asking me things about the two words. Because for me, I'm so used to talk Portuguese that I don't see any difference.
Yeah, interesting.
So he does an amazing job learning Portuguese.
Yeah. Okay, we'll bring him in at some point for sure. He's available every Monday morning. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, folks. Maria, I think last word to you as our guest of honor tonight.
Wow. Well, a couple of things came to my mind. So, hearing you all, those are indeed the topics that most people come also to me saying, I need to learn about this, and this. Everything you said is what most people want to learn too. So that's good. Another important thing, Santinho.
Okay, there you go.
Santinho.
Another important thing and a fun thing about having a group is that since you are not alone and you are all in the same page, you don't feel so afraid of making mistakes. If you are in a good group and not with someone that hates Portuguese. Okay. Okay, today we will learn how to go to the restaurant. And your challenge, your homework would be go to the restaurant and apply it, and then come back and tell us how it went. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't go well, but you have the experience, and that's really the only way that you learn.
Nothing teaches like trauma.
That's right.
Yeah, you just got to get the right level. You've got to get the right level of it, haven't you? That is life, isn't it? No question, that is life. But you don't want to be over traumatized and put in a situation then you're having therapy from James Hawley as well as language lessons. All right, brilliant.
And the third point, sorry, just to finish, is listening to Portuguese. Because even if you don't know how to say any word in Portuguese, if you listen to it enough, you will start noticing the tones that no one was talking about. And even people that already know Portuguese, sometimes we create habits of speaking in a certain way that then Portuguese people don't understand because the sounds are different. Like at the end of the word, when there is an O, we say U.
Yes.
Like favorite, favorito.
Yes.
But when you say favorito, we don't understand because we are not thinking the same way.
Yeah.
So sometimes even you might know all the words, but pronunciation and listening is really important.
Yes.
And that's the first thing, and that's free. If you find something good to listen to, usually people don't like TV shows from TVI or SIC, those Portuguese channels, which
Yeah.
I understand. But if you find a good one and a person you like to listen to, I would say go for it.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Thank you very much for being here. We can leave it there tonight because that's been really helpful.